OLE, the utopian world of online education.
Hello students, welcome to OLE. This is your chemistry class and we are going to start a new chapter of class 10th, that is acids, bases and salts. As the name suggests that we are going to study about acids, we are going to study about the bases and the salts that are present around us. Okay. So the first question here arises is, what is an acid, what is a base and what is a salt? So what is an acid? Acid is a substance which when reacts with water, it gives a hydronium ion as only positive ion. Acid is a substance which on reacting with water yields hydronium ions. So what are hydronium ions? I will tell you shortly. Hydronium ions that are represented as H3O positive, hydronium ions as cations. Okay. Or you can also write as the positive ions. So acid is such a substance, whenever an acid reacts with water, it yields hydronium ion on reaction. For example, you know that hydrochloric acid is an acid, HCl. Whenever it will react with water, it will yield hydronium ions as a positive ions or as cations, and it will yield chlorine ions or chloride ions. Okay. So now, as I have told you that an acid will always yield hydronium ions. So how this hydronium ion is formed, let me tell you. For example, this is water. This is what? This is a water. This is a molecule of water. So molecule of water is electrically neutral because यहाँ पे जो है देखिए हाइड्रोजन, दो एटम्स ऑफ हाइड्रोजन है, दोनों पे प्लस चार्ज है और एक एटम ऑफ ऑक्सीजन है उस पे 2 नेगेटिव का चार्ज है. तो +2 -2 क्या होते हैं? न्यूट्रल हो जाते हैं. Whereas whenever an acid reacts with water, what happens is कि यहाँ पे जो है ये वाला हाइड्रोजन भी क्या करता है, इस वाटर के साथ जो है जुड़ जाता है. और जब वो वाटर के साथ जुड़ जाता है तो H2O की जगह जो कंपाउंड बनता है दैट इज H3O. यहाँ पे पॉजिटिव चार्ज क्यों लगा है? क्योंकि ऑक्सीजन के पास जो है वो -2 चार्ज है. ठीक है. वेयरएज हर हाइड्रोजन के पास +1 चार्ज है. और क्योंकि यहाँ पे नंबर ऑफ हाइड्रोजन आटम जो है वो 3 हो चुके हैं, सो टोटल चार्जेस +3. तो अगर हम इस कंपाउंड पर टोटल चार्ज आफ्टर कैलकुलेशन कैलकुलेट करेंगे, +3 - 2 विल बी +1. सो ये यील्ड करता है हाइड्रोनियम आयन दैट इज रिटन एज H3O पॉजिटिव. ओके. सो एसिड जो है कई प्रकार के होते हैं. देयर आर मेनी टाइप्स ऑफ एसिड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ विच वी कैन differentiate between the acids. Acid can be dilute, it can be concentrated, it can be inorganic acid, it can be organic acid, and many more. Let us find out how many types of acid are there. So we are going to discuss about the types of acid. Types of acid. On the basis of, we are going to distinguish the types of acid on some basis. So what are the bases? On the basis of its source, on the basis of its strength, and on the basis of the concentration. Okay, concentration. So first thing is that we are going to discuss is the type of acid on the basis of source. अगर हम source की बात करें, so एसिड जो है दो तरीके के मिलते हैं. ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ सोर्स देयर आर 2 टाइप्स ऑफ एसिड. द फर्स्ट वन इज ऑर्गेनिक and the second one is inorganic. So there are two types of acid now on the basis of source. The first one is organic acid and the second one is inorganic acid. Now the question here arises ki what is an organic acid? The acid which can be obtained by the organic things, for example from the plants, from the fruits, that are known as organic acid, whereas the acids which cannot be obtained by the plants or fruits and they can be made in laboratories, or they are known as mineral acids as well. So what is the example of organic acid? The example of organic acid can be citric acid and can be tartaric acid. Tartaric acid. Citric acid can be found in the citrus fruits including lemon, oranges, etc. Whereas tartaric acid can be found in tamarind. In Hindi it is called imli. उसमें भी जो है एक प्रकार का acid होता है, that is known as tartaric acid. Now we are going to discuss about the inorganic acid. So actually what is inorganic acids? The inorganic acids are those acids which are obtained by inorganic forms like mineral acids. We can also call them as mineral acids. Okay. That are not naturally available to us, that are not available in nature. Hence they are known as inorganic acid. So what is the example of inorganic acid? The example of inorganic acid can be HCl, hydrochloric acid, H2SO4 that is sulfuric acid, and HNO3 that is nitric acid. So on the basis of source, you know that there are two types of acid. One is organic acid and the second one is inorganic acid. And you know that organic acid is naturally available to us, that is it is available from in the plants or in the fruits or from the various plant products. And inorganic acids are not naturally available to us, or we can say they are made up of minerals, so they are also known as mineral acid. For example, hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, etc. Now on the basis of strength, if we talk about the strength of the acid, so on the basis of strength, acid can be classified as weak acid and strong acid. Okay, on the basis of strength, acid can be classified as weak acid and a strong acid. So what is a weak acid and what is a strong acid? Because we have already discussed that whenever acid dissolves in water, whenever acid reacts with water, it yields hydronium ion. What it yields? It yields hydronium ions. Okay. So now what will be the definition for weak acid and strong acid? Now weak acid will be such an acid that dissolves with water but do not dissociate completely. But it will not dissociate completely and it will not form the hydronium ions in larger quantities. So in short, अगर मैं आपको example दूँ weak acid के लिए, तो weak acid will be such an acid which will dissolve in water. I am not saying that weak acid will not dissolve in water. It will dissolve in water, but it will not dissociate completely. Always remember, weak acids do not dissociate completely. So weak acid will not dissociate completely, hence will not form the large number of hydronium ions. It will form just like this, plus H ions. ठीक है? Hydronium ions can be written as H ions because, why it can be written? Because hydronium ions is formed with H ions and water reacts together. So in some books, in some papers, you can always find it as it only an H ion. So if it is yielding H ions, that means it is an acid. So weak acid dissociates into water but not completely. Weak acid always dissociates in the water partially and it does not yield the high concentration of H ions, or we can say hydronium ions. Do not ever confuse in the H ions or the hydronium ions, because I have told you, as I have told you earlier, that H ions plus water, it makes the hydronium ions. So it can be written as only H ions as well as the hydronium ions. Okay, so do not ever confuse. So what you have known about the weak acid. Weak acid is such a acid that on dissolving with water, it does not yield the high concentration of hydronium ions or high concentration of H ions, and in addition, it only partially dissociates. Okay. Now, what is strong acid? Because weak is the opposite of strong, then weak acid is totally the opposite of strong acid. So, what will be a strong acid here? Strong acid is that acid which completely dissociates into water. So, what is a strong acid? Strong acid completely, always remember it, completely dissociates in water. Dissociates in water. Okay. So, weak acid partially dissociates in water, whereas strong acid completely dissociates in water. Weak acid yields low concentration of H ions, whereas strong acid yields high concentration of H ions. High concentration of H ions. Okay. So, what will be the reaction for strong acid? The reaction for strong acid will be HCl plus H2O, that will give out hydronium ions plus chloride ions. Okay. So, here what is happening? This strong acid, the hydrochloric acid is regarded as the strong acid, and this strong acid, whenever it will dissolve in water, it will completely dissociates into hydronium ions and chloride ions, whereas a weak acid will not completely dissociate into the hydronium ions and other respective ions. That is only why, because weak acid is not completely dissociating. That is the reason why it is not yielding the high concentration of hydronium ions, or what we say is hydrogen ions. Okay, whereas in the strong acid it is completely dissociating. That is why it is yielding the high concentration of hydronium ions. One more thing that I would like to tell you, that whenever you dissolve an acid into the water, the solution then formed will be known as an aqueous solution. Whenever an acid dissolves into the water, the solution that will be formed is known as aqueous solution. And whenever the water is being dissolved or acid is being dissolved in the water, then the concentration of acid will decrease. So, the third basis of distinguishing between the type of acid is concentration. If the concentration of acid is low in the given solution, it is known as dilute acid. So, on the basis of concentration, there are two types of acid: dilute acid and concentrated acid. Okay, as I have told you, whenever we dissolve an acid into a water, it will make an aqueous solution. If the percentage of water is higher than the percentage of an acid, it is known as diluted acid, whereas the percentage of acid is higher, it will be known as concentrated acid. Okay, so on the basis of the source, strength and concentration, we have defined different types of acids. The first one is organic acid and inorganic acid. That was on the type of source. If we get a certain type of acids from plants or plant products, we name them as organic acid. If we get some acids from the minerals, that are also known as mineral acid, they are regarded as inorganic acid. The example for organic acid is citric acid, tartaric acid, oxalic acid, etc. Whereas the example for inorganic acid is hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, etc. On the basis of strength, there are two types of acid, weak acid, strong acid. Weak acid partially dissociates in water. For example, oxalic acid. This is the example of oxalic acid. This is oxalic acid, and oxalic acid is generally found in the tomatoes. Tomatoes contain this oxalic acid. So we can infer that organic acids are weak acid and inorganic acids are strong acid. So what is a weak acid? Weak acid do not completely dissociate or partially dissociates whenever dissolved in water and thus yields low concentration of H ions, whereas strong acid completely dissociates into the water and yields high concentration of H ions. The example for weak acid is oxalic acid. Example of strong acid will be hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, etc. Again, I am telling you that organic acids comes in the category of weak acid, whereas inorganic acid comes in the category of strong acid. Now, third, on the basis of concentration, the acids can be differentiated into dilute acid and concentrated acid. What is a dilute acid? Dilute, whenever the percentage of water is higher in the given aqueous solution of acid and water, it will be known as dilute acid. Whereas if the concentration of acid is higher or in the given solution, that will be known as concentrated acid. These are some of the characteristics of acid. One more thing that I would like to tell you, that acid is sour in taste. Whenever you will taste an acid, you will always find that acid is sour in taste. Sour in taste means it is, in Hindi, it is known as खट्टी चीज. एसिड जो है वो हमेशा टेस्ट में खट्टा ही लगता है. सिट्रिक एसिड इज फाउंड इन लेमन जूस. लेमन भी खट्टा होता है. टार्ट्रिक एसिड इज फाउंड इन इमली, दैट इज टैमरिंड, वो भी जो है वो खट्टी ही होती है. Whereas अगर हम बात करें इनऑर्गेनिक एसिड की, तो प्लीज डू नॉट एवर ट्राई टू टेस्ट देम, दे आर वेरी hazardous. Okay, this was all about acid, and the next thing that we will going to discuss will be the bases. Bases भी हम इसी तरीके से डिस्कस करेंगे, that the types of bases, where are bases found, and everything about the bases. But we will discuss about the bases in the next upcoming video of this chapter. Till then, stay tuned. Take care. Bye-bye.